our first webinar on Open Data Initiative. We've been doing a lot of webinars, so this will be one in a series, but focused on data transparency and bringing you more information about what we've been focused on with the Open Data Initiative. So we've got a number of people joining. We will give it another minute before I hand it over to Sean, who will present, and I'll do a brief introduction. But I am participating from Washington, D.C. We had an event yesterday with Ajit Pai, the chairman of the FTC, other commissioners from the FCC on internet freedom. We had another event, end-of-year party in D.C. Last night. So it's been a very busy week on the Lincoln Network front, but really all incredible things. So I'm excited to tell you a bit more about Open Data Initiative and then hand it over to my friend, my colleague, Sean Roberts. So Lincoln Network is a community of technology professionals. We focus on using our technology skills to advance economic and individual liberty. We do that in a number of ways. On the policy front, tech policy front, we try to bring really smart people together who focus their careers in technology, and as well as people who live and work in the tech policy world in order to meet each other, learn from each other. But another area where we try to add value is providing technology professionals an opportunity to use their skill set to help government professionals do their jobs better. And one challenge that every level of government, whether it be federal, state, or local, is having right now is how do I manage the massive amounts of data that's coming into government, that government has to control, has to manage. And we've been fortunate to have one of our community members, Sean Roberts, who is an expert in open data, open source technology, take on this project, lead this project. And so I'm going to turn the presentation over to him to give a quick background on his career and then run us through all of the details of what the Open Data Initiative is all about. So Sean, over to you.
Thanks, Garrett. Let's jump in and talk about the Open Data Initiative. I'll answer your questions at the end of the talk. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Late summer 2017, we began investigating government financial transparency status quo by reviewing the US state open financial data and policies. From this research, we created our own transparency scorecard regarding the implementation of open data practices at the state level. We found these key problems. Data is difficult to access. Tax and checkbook data is not available. No single pane of glass is to view all data is in one online place. Formatting is inconsistent, not well documented. So by looking at the transparency scorecard information you have on the screen there, we also found some additional policy information in addition to that at the state level. There are 34 states without a known or published finance open data policy. 9 of those 34 appear to have outsourced their open finance data policy to a technology contractor. 16 of the states have some form of published finance open data policy. The policy of these 16 are either by executive order by the governor, there's 3 states, or by law enacted by the state legislature, 13 states. With more investigation working with policy experts, more state finance open data policy may be found. The information we've found so far has been published by the state in some form online. We'll continue developing and expanding our transparency scorecard through surveys of government municipalities with a review of California. This information will continue to be online. So let's move on. So ODI is working on, in addition to the transparency scorecard, we needed to better understand and document the government open financial transparency tools and best practices. So we created 2 documents outlining what we've found so far. Both these documents are posted on our website. Because we have researched the most common commercial and open source financial transparency implementations, from this, we're able to document financial transparency tools. I can summarize the tools document you see here by stating there are many options available. The few most successful are well-funded and have a growing customer base with separate European and US solutions. Having many tools options available is good for the customer, but this field is very young and many of the options are not designed to be interchangeable. Unless one solution is used for the entire transparency implementation, with many of the options comes complexity. For the next revision of the tools documentation, we'll be starting to review tools using the common features of successful open financial data implementations we've found so far from our transparency report development. These are easy to use website, single pane of glass, common, easy to understand formatting, easy to use functionality for the entire checkbook data set, and data schemes and techniques provided with the data sets. We also documented some financial transparency best practices from our experience with interviews and observation. I can share a few highlights here. First, establish the practice of publishing data with all the internal departments with realistic objectives. For most organizations, there will be many complicated processes to document and replace. By setting achievable goals, the demands and impact on the staff can be minimized. Second, it's critical to hire qualified people, ranging from full-time employees and consultants to commercial contracts. To support any commercial open source financial data implementation, you'll need at least a skilled web engineer with operations experience. To implement a more custom solution using many options, you'll need a team of engineers. Lastly, maintain your own self-transparency scorecard. Include feedback from your customers, the public. Compare your score with other public transparency scores. Grading your progress will keep you honest. The Open Data Initiative is currently working on these 3 projects: transparency report, tools, and best practices. We also have some additional projects in the works: a machine-readable financial reporting standard and a cooperative open data legislation development. All our project work will continue to be publicly available. We'll continue to hold monthly webinars to inform the public. We'll continue to overview the state of our work and next steps at each webinar. I'm going to briefly review 2 government organizations that have made significant progress towards financial transparency. We could use these organizations as examples of what is possible. What would become the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act, or DATA Act, was first introduced in June 2011 to the US Congress, and the resulting legislation was signed into law May 2014, requiring all federal agency financial data to be digitally, publicly published according to government-wide standards. As a point of reference, according to the US Government Accountability Office, or GAO, in 2015, 20% of the federal government agencies did not even publish their 2014 financial statements internally for review, much less public. After 3 years of work, this spring 2017, every federal agency began reporting $3.8 trillion worth of spending in one standardized format. A huge achievement to get this quantity of federal spending published for the public review. In 2013, PRG ranked Ohio 46th in the nation for government financial data transparency. PIRG is a federation of state public interest research groups, or PRG, that annually puts out a report rating of all 50 US states on providing online access to government spending data. This report is widely used by many as the best report available on data financial transparency. That PIRG report got the attention of the recently elected Ohio State Treasurer, Josh Mandel, in 2014, and he set out to fix Ohio government's data transparency problem. It took a year for the Ohio government to build, and in the following year, the Ohio checkbook went online at ohiocheckbook.com. And in 2015, PIRG updated Ohio's ranking from 46th in the nation to 1st in the nation, an achievement to be proud of. These are examples of government organizations that have overcome many problems to provide their constituents with access to public data. We want to build on their success. Over the summer of 2017, I started looking for a new nonprofit open source project to work on. I wanted to use my experience working in Silicon Valley in a nonprofit open source software development projects to improve the ability of government to provide the public with open data. Once I met the people at Lincoln Network, we almost immediately started working on identifying how we could together improve the state of government open financial data. We created the Open Data Initiative, or ODI, to hold the results of our work. To challenge what we thought we understood, we participated in a variety of policy-related events discussing the need of government financial transparency with public groups, government officials throughout the fall of 2017. These include SPN Annual Conference in San Antonio, Data Coalition Open Demo Day in Sacramento, and the California Policy Center CLIO event in Orange County, to name a few. We've been verifying our assumptions and solidifying our plans for 2018. So what's next? What do we want from you? First, we want to know more about you. Please answer your transparency interest questions we'll be sending to you by email. Next, we're looking for feedback on financial transparency from government officials. After answering your transparency interest questions, we want you to take the self-transparency survey. You'll find the link for the self-transparency survey at the end of the first survey. Most importantly, we want participation from engineers, policy experts, and government officials in the Open Data Initiative events and projects. By joining ODI, you'll be helping to make government financial transparency a reality for all government organizations. Learn more about what we're doing and how to join by going to the Open Data Initiative io.io website. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. So I'm being passed through some questions. They're being posted online. So first question, if you could accomplish one objective with ODI, what would it be? Well, the most basic thing that we're trying to accomplish is to encourage collaboration. And the most basic way we can do that is through a mailing list. So when you go to the Open Data Initiative IO website, you'll see that there's one of the sections is called Join. And one of the steps in joining ODI is to join the mailing list. So if we could at least get people on that mailing list discussing and postulating how to fix their current government transparency problems and or providing solutions to others that are talking about their problems, that would be a great way, or that would be a great accomplishment to at least get that up and going and have active conversation on that mailing list. So second question, with so many organizations working on this issue, what makes ODI unique, or what value do we add? So that's pretty straightforward to answer. There's certainly a lot of organizations that have been working on this for a number of years. What we're providing here is a forum for those organizations that are working on very distinct solutions for government financial transparency, a place to collaborate. So that is what what we're putting together, and what we're organizing is getting a place, a forum for all that work to come up and provide straightforward solutions and explanation, if you will, to the average consumer, what's available out in the marketplace, and also how to build and implement your own. That's really what we want to accomplish. So next question. Questions about sharing some details of my background. So I've been working in computer engineering for the past 20 plus years. More specifically, over the last 8 years, coming from my time at Yahoo, I started working on open source projects. And primarily, I got involved with open source projects pretty straight for a very straightforward reason. While I was at Yahoo, we needed to build some technology, and we hadn't had the best of luck doing it on our own, so we wanted to collaborate with others. So we, with some other organizations, started an open source project, and since then, I've discovered that working on open source projects is a great way to collaborate with others on technology and coming up with common solutions that commercial ventures can build on, and the public can better understand what's available and what they can do. So the fourth question I have here is, you mentioned several legislations. Let me try it again. You mentioned several legislative efforts to improve open data from government. What is the role that that efforts like ODI have played in accomplishing that? So I could use California as an example. Well, actually, California and Ohio. So California has some laws at the state level on the books around open data. Unfortunately, that legislation is rather specific and asks for there to be it's asking very specifically around if something is considered to be open data, then you need to, in general, do these things. But the specifics on how you implement it, like, for instance, the quality of the information that's available vis-a-vis open data, there's really no mention of that. So that's the law is a good start, but there needs to be additional work, either through legislative or policy at the state level, to kind of close the loop on that. So that's an area that perhaps ODI, working with some members, that we can help close that loop. With Ohio, they've actually been working on implementing open data since 2014, as I stated in the example. And they've been, the policy that's allowed that to happen has come down from the Treasury Office. But there's no actual legislation requiring the work that's been done. So if somebody else gets in the future, it's entirely possible that the good work that has been done so far in Ohio could get rolled back, or perhaps not maintained to the level that the current administration does. So they've been working on legislation to enshrine that into law with some amount of success, but they've actually been working on that, I believe, since 2014. And they're still refining the legal process to put that policy by the Treasury Office into actual state law, so that the quality of ohiocheckbook.com will be there for future generations. So the last question I have here is, please tell me more about the working groups. What are the topics? Are they already formed? So what we're at right now is, and I could actually share this real fast. Let me share my screen real fast again. So I'll actually show you the Open Data website, Open Data Initiative website, that is. So in the join section, you see that there's a variety of steps to joining Open Data Initiative, ODI. And the very last step is that we have 3 current projects. And I actually have that out on a what's called a wiki, because it makes it a little bit easier to develop this stuff. So some of this information is a little bit duplicative, mostly because I want to make sure anybody that comes upon the wiki understands what ODI is about, and learn some bits about what we're doing and how to join the community. So the very last option you see here is join us to work on projects. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that. So what we have so far is we have our 3 projects right here in the middle of the screen: best practices, transparency report, and tools. So if I go ahead and select best practices, you'll see that the work that we've done so far is actually published here. And we haven't actually started holding meetings for this yet, but as soon as I get enough people together that are interested in working on this, now that we have just published this information out there, I will schedule time and we'll start meeting. So I hope that answers the question. Let me go back. There we go. Okay, so last question. Why is open data important to average citizens? How does it open up new avenues or entrepreneurship or improve services to constituents? So the policy of open data for our day and age is, I believe, very critical for the functioning government. So I believe pretty strongly that transparency is one of the core tenets of our government. That we as voters, as constituents, understanding what our government's doing and that work being transparent is really critical. And the ability for us as constituents to see data on finances is a critical aspect of how our government is spending the taxes have been levied that we're paying. So I believe as an average citizen, for the day and age that we're living through, where data is prevalent and there's our ability to access data on a variety of topics is prevalent, we need to be able to have the same quality of information from our local, municipal, and state and federal government as well. So that looks like that's it for questions. Really, thank you for joining us. We will be having future webinars. We'll be holding these monthly to update you, the public, of what we're working on. And please go out there, as I asked, and answer the transparency interest questions. And please go to the site and see how you'd like to participate with Open Data Initiative. Thank you for your time.